everybody, Jason here from Ghostbusters News, and if you happen to follow any of the Ghostbusters News social media channels, you likely know that this past week, I, along with tons of other fans and media outlets, we were invited to New York City to cover the launch party of Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, which, a quick FYI, is set to release next week, October 18th. Now, of course, while at the launch party, I got my hands on with the game. I finally got to try it out, and what do I think about it? Well, I'll tell you a bit later on in this video. For now, let's go ahead and talk about the trip. Because as soon as I landed in New York, I knew there was one place I had to go, and that was, of course, Hook and Ladder 8. In fact, I should make mention that my hotel was just a little over 400 feet away from the Ghostbusters firehouse. I mean, how cool is that? And to say that those that work at the fully functional firehouse were welcoming, that would be an understatement. They even opened up the doors as I arrived, and as seen here, that attracted a pretty fair-sized audience. And while there, I did purchase a few items, some t-shirts, a hoodie, a collector's coin, and after talking with some of the brave firefighters that work there, I was off to my second film location. And that was the once slime-covered museum that was seen in Ghostbusters 2. Now in the movie, it was the Manhattan Museum of Art, but in the real world, it's known as the National Museum of the American Indian. And while there, I noticed instead of it being taken over by Vigo the Carpathian, well, it was a pretty busy spot, thanks to its new ruler, a farmer's market. I'm also happy to report that the museum has hardly really changed since the 1989 film. However, with that said, when I was leaving, I wasn't greeted with nearly as much fanfare as the Ghostbusters were. And if you are a lover of films and cinema, I should also make mention that right up the road from the museum is the Men in Black building. Or I guess as it's actually known, the Hugh L. Carey Tunnel Ventilation Building. I don't know, to me, Men in Black building, it's just easier to say, it just kind of rolls off the tongue. From there, I stumbled across Washington Square. Once again, another busy spot, especially considering I was in town the weekend of New York Comic-Con. And for some of you that don't know the significance of this location to Ghostbusters, this was featured in Ghostbusters 2's Flip City montage. And speaking of montages, I then hopped aboard the subway, made my way uptown, all the way to Times Square, Rockefeller Plaza, catching this simple footage of the Prometheus statue. Once again, if you know, you know. Now while in the area, I did a bit of shopping. I checked out the 2-floor Lego store, which in addition to having a massive Statue of Liberty on display, also showed off a lot of love to the Ghostbusters franchise. You'll see here we got the Ecto-1, and then making your way up to the second floor, you're gonna find this display of the Ghostbusters firehouse. We got the Ghostbusters sign, Slimer, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and then standing across, Ray Stantz and Peter Venkman. Oh, and before I get asked, while not made of Lego, both Winston and Egon, they are represented. And aside from eating a lot of New York pizza, wonderful, delicious New York pizza, that was pretty much my day, because as of 8 p.m., I attended a Ghostbusters screening, a screening of the original 1984 film that was hosted by IllFonic, developers of Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. And IllFonic, they love Ghostbusters just about as much as we love Ghostbusters. I mean, here's a couple of members of the IllFonic team, rocking a bunch of new Ghostbusters equipment that was commissioned by master prop builder Rhett J. Martin. I talked to all of them, and you can really tell there is a passion for the franchise, there is a passion for Ghostbusters. Honestly, I feel like with this game, yeah, it's in good hands. Also in attendance was James and Elise Willems. And not only are they a part of Rooster Teeth, but if you didn't know, they're actually the writers behind Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. Both of whom, let me just say, they were totally amazing to talk to. And from what I saw, what I heard, they did a phenomenal job on the game. Once again, more on that later. But yeah, they've really kind of tapped into the spirit of Ghostbusters. Pun intended, pun intended. And from there, yeah, I watched Ghostbusters. I mean, what else can be said? It's Ghostbusters. After the event, I was then scheduled to meet up with a couple of friends outside the Ghostbusters firehouse. Like I said, it was only like 400 feet away from my hotel. I wasn't constantly hanging outside of the firehouse. I mean, don't judge me. Just don't judge me. But yeah, while I was waiting for those friends, guess who showed up? The IllFonic team. Once again, I think they love this stuff just as much as we do. They are fans. Oh yeah, and those friends I was meeting outside of Hook and Ladder 8, they were Tony Taylor from Tony Taylor Toys and Phantasm Toys, as well as Hastel Toy of Hastel Toy and Collectibles. Both of which longtime supporters of Ghostbusters News. We featured them here on the channel multiple times, and honestly, I don't see that ending anytime soon. After that, got back to my hotel, had a nice sleep, woke up, and then I got unexpectedly invited to New York Comic Con. So yeah, I went to New York Comic Con. And while I didn't attend like any panels, I did walk the entire showroom floor, maybe spending a bit too much money. Oh, and I know I just mentioned them, but I did have to show some love to Hastel Toy and also Phantasm Toys. Checking out their booth, seeing what they were selling, and also what figures they have in store for us later this year. Now after New York Comic Con, I was all around the city. I went to Tom's Restaurant, the Seinfeld restaurant, grabbed myself a double cheeseburger with some french fries. It did not disappoint. And then right up the road, I found myself at Columbia University. And this is only my second time ever coming to New York City, and this is my first time at Columbia. There was a lot going on around me, but I had to check out that one spot. And I think you know the one I'm talking about, where they filmed the For Whatever Reason Ray scene. Now, there is a metal railing up where Bill Murray sat, and given that, it does make it a little bit more difficult for fans to reenact that moment. Given I did spend quite a bit of time at New York Comic Con, it was getting late, so I knew I only had a limited window to visit a couple more Ghostbusters film locations. One of which that was a must was 55 Central Park West, or as I prefer to call it, the Shandor Building. Or I guess Gozer's Temple, really whatever you want to call it. I got some photos, some videos of that building, also the church that stands next to it. You know, the white church with the red doors that Stay Puft stepped on in Ghostbusters. But there was one more film location that I totally had to check out. And that was the New York Public Library. Not too much was going on here, but much like Columbia University, this was my very first time going to the library. With that filming location checkmarked off my bucket list, I then ran back, well, I took a subway, back to the hotel, freshened up just a little bit, and then it was time to party. And in addition to being able to try out Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, and yes, like I already said, my thoughts on it, they're coming. Those in attendance, they were also able to get a custom Ghostbusters patch made. Also, there was a variety of themed Ghostbusters drinks. And this one was my favorite. I'm pretty sure, I think it was called the Slimerita. Yeah, it was tasty. I had like 5 of these things. And everyone in attendance, we got the surprise of a lifetime when Jason Reitman, Gil Kinnan, McKenna Grace, and Logan Kim, they all showed up. And speaking of those celebrity guests, kind of a fun moment, throughout the night, I kind of, made eye contact with Logan Kim a couple times. And then when he was on the dance floor and I was on the dance floor, we made eye contact again, and Logan, he walked towards me. He then put his hand on my right shoulder and said, "Jason, I watch you." And then me, once again full of Slimeritas, I put both of my hands on his shoulders and I said, "Logan, I watch you." Logan, if I scared you, I apologize. Honestly though, Logan Kim and McKenna Grace, they were both amazing, even posing for this picture with yours truly. And while I do feel like this could be a Ghostbusters retelling of that Steve Buscemi meme, you know the one, how do you do, fellow kids? This ranks up there as one of the coolest moments I've ever had at any Ghostbusters function. Now, as I said earlier, there was tons of other media personalities, reporters, Ghostbusters franchises that made it out to this event. Among them being the NYC Ghostbusters, the Yellow Rose Ghostbusters, the crew at Yes Have Some Podcast, AJ Quick from Ghostbusters Fans. It was also my absolute pleasure to actually sit down with the writers of Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. I mentioned them a bit earlier, but once again, James and Elise Willems. Head of creative at Ilphonic, Jared Garrettson, he also joined in on the conversation, with Jared even letting me check out the collector's edition box a little bit early, which honestly, for any Ghostbusters collector, this is a must-have. It looks awesome in hand, in person. Now with all this said, all this hype, what do I think of the game? What do I think of Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed? Well, I had about 5 games in it, playing as both a ghost and a Ghostbuster, and it is fun. It is really fun. Like, I am so hoping the Ghostbusters community, it embraces this game when it releases once again next week, October 18th. As I feel like it is something we could all be playing for a very long time. The graphic style in person, it works perfectly, and honestly, it looks great. And I got to dive into all the different ghost types, the upgrade options, which, by the way, keep posted to Ghostbusters News here on YouTube, as we're going to be featuring all that soon here on the channel. But what I really want to stress to everyone out there who's maybe on the fence about picking up this game, yeah, it's fun. It is really fun, no matter if you're playing as a ghost or a Ghostbuster. And I know a small amount of you out there, you're a little iffy, mainly because playing as a Ghostbuster in first person isn't your thing. You would prefer a third-person shooter. And yes, I get that argument, especially with the game having customization and such like that. I understand. But the first time you hit that right trigger and you fire the proton stream in first person, especially if you just like tap it just for a quick second here, you can see the front of the barrel just light up for a quick second. Oh yeah, also you can go down the fire pole in first person, and that put the biggest smile on my goofy face. Like, this really happened. I went down the fire pole, I was just there smiling, I may have dropped my controller, and one of the IllFonic team members, they walked by me, they put their hand on my back and they said, are you okay? And I was more than okay, because I just went down the Ghostbusters fire pole. Gotta try this pole! And I've already kind of talked about like the Neutrino wand, the proton blaster and such, but there's so much more equipment in the game. From the ghost trap, the PKE meter, the ecto goggles, all of which do feel true to the franchise. And while you can totally upgrade some of those pieces of equipment, it doesn't really feel like IllFonic has taken a crazy amount of liberties here. Which, once again, to me, that feels great because it feels like Ghostbusters. So with my limited amount of time, what do I think? Am I excited to play Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed when it comes out once again next week, October 18th? Yeah. Yeah, I am. And I'm sorry I keep saying this, but it is just fun. It is so much fun. IllFonic, they have got something special here, and I really hope the streaming communities out there, the online multiplayer communities, the Ghostbusters community, we all embrace this thing and we make it a big hit. So with all that said, I want to thank IllFonic for making it possible. Guys, thank you so much for inviting me out to that screening of the 1984 Ghostbusters, and of course, the unforgettable Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed launch party. I've been doing this now, this whole website, for, I don't know, 13 years, going on 14 years. This is probably one of the coolest things I've ever attended, and I'll never forget it. It was amazing. And on top of IllFonic, thank you to all the Ghostbusters fan franchises out there that said hello to me at the launch party around New York City. It was awesome. NYC Ghostbusters, the Yellow Rose Ghostbusters. There were other ones, but I'm drawing a blank, and I apologize for that. Also, fellow people within the community who aren't necessarily franchises. Prop builder Rhett J. Martin, the Yes Have Some podcast, AJ Quick of Ghostbusters fans, of course Sony Pictures, Eric Reich, and everyone at Ghost Corps. This was an amazing time. Yeah, thank you to everybody that was a part of it. It was just amazing. It was fun. I'm gonna say fun again. It was fun and amazing. Never forget it. So that does it for this one. As always, subscribe. If you'd like to join up with Ghostbusters News, check out our Patreon page. A link to that is down below in the description, and I'll see you right back here next time.